Illuminating Light's stomach started to gurgling. Immediately I had to mobilize my internal strength to stop that unpleasant pain. A very cold look and a slightly dangerous voice. "What are you trying to do to me?" "I can't tell you about that." "Okay." Hearing the answer was so annoying that Illuminating Light immediately jumped in to hit the male lead. But he still had a very normal attitude and didn't bother to say anything. The opponent's hand flashed, emitting a lot of internal energy. In just a blink of an eye, Lee JaHa still had the strength to resist. Another loud explosion occurred as soon as the two palms collided. Together. Sure enough, Illuminating Light's body was poisoned, so it couldn't last long. As for the male lead, he was fine as usual. Both took the initiative to advance. Closer together. Coughing sounds began to resound from that little white knife's side. "What exactly are you trying to do?" But Lee JaHa didn't bother to answer, just cursed at him. Fuang is a greedy person. He was planning to continue cursing each other, but it seemed Illuminating Light couldn't take it anymore. He had to run away no matter who his opponent was. But it seems the male lead won't leave it alone like that. He quickly chased after you. "Do you think I'll give him time to go further?" Then the other person stopped and threw a punch to block the way. With a bang, the explosion and farting sound of Illuminating Light rang out. Because he couldn't stand it anymore, he didn't bother to speak up. "If you will give me the antidote, I will spare my life." You stupid idiot, do you still dare to threaten me? Come to your senses. You think if you ask me, I will give it to you. I will say it again, if I give you the antidote, I will spare your life. Of course not, Lee JaHa can't care. I promise I'll give you the medicine only when it extrudes on the spot. It's too spicy, I can't stand it. Illuminating Light peels off my shirt out and tied to the abdomen. Maybe doing this will temporarily stop the pain. As he squeezed his hand tightly, he was sure that next year would be Lee JaHa's death anniversary. But his expression was indifferent, as if he were deaf. "Even though I'm going to vomit my pants today, you'll know what I'm doing. I don't need any antidote for my pants." The more Lee JaHa talks, the more innocent he looks. Immediately, the spiritual energy in Illuminating Light's body was extremely powerful. This made the male protagonist's eyes widen in surprise. That country boy, even if you beg, it's useless now. As soon as he arrived, the sound of popping sounds rang out. Sure enough, he had done a few yards. Lee JaHa panicked and waved his hand to chase his opponent away to avoid getting stuck in gold. "If you're a man, why do you have to be afraid of being dirty?" Humiliated in a moment. "Come here quickly and I will fight until I can't distinguish between my goods and yours." Now today, Lee JaHa just met a crazy person just like him. He wanted to continue, but he couldn't speak because it smelled so bad. Even so, he didn't even have time to fight. Illuminating Light now had a black face and rushed in, just wanting to skin the male lead. Fortunately, he held his breath and raised his hand to protest. The two terrible internal forces collided so hard that everything was scattered. It didn't seem to stop there, both continued to fight each other. As expected, this opponent was similar. It's difficult to deal with Lee JaHa. I don't understand how much Illuminating Light has done. As for the male lead, he's still holding his breath and punching each other. Suddenly spiritual energy emanates from his body. Was there an explosion just now, or did he vomit it all over his pants? Thinking about it, Lee JaHa jumped up high to escape his opponent's sights. It was a bit unlucky for him to jump right out. Behind Illuminating Light's back, both sides continuously punched and kicked terrible things. Not only that, but Illuminating Light continuously punched and farted. That made it a bit difficult for Lee JaHa to breathing. Wherever the male lead's figure went, his hand would reach out. In his mind, he secretly admired how good this man was at holding back. Even though the smell of shit was strong, he was still calm. Defense and attack. As expected, I consider him to be the person JaHa clan needs. A martial arts genius who even has no shame in pooping his pants. Not only that, but also perfectly blocked my cervical magic. But it's not like I couldn't use the ancient magic from the beginning. Because I couldn't use my new shoes I can step on that pile of feces. Looking at the white clothes covered in feces, it looks really disgusting. Turns out this is an even scarier situation than being exposed to extreme poison. Just thinking about this makes Lee JaHa feel like he's about to die. I vomited. Then he started to use his energy to use a strong move to cover up the smell. His opponent was so disgusting all over his crotch these days. Both of them continued to put their internal strength and attack each other. Boom, many loud sounds rang out, smoke and dust spread out. No one was hurt at all. Lee JaHa had to say a few words of praise to his opponent. "You're pretty good at pooping your pants, aren't you? Your strength is higher than I expected. It's been a long time since I met an opponent you're so good at fighting. As expected, you're not an ordinary pooper, are you?" As he said that, he rummaged through his pocket. Then he promised to give him the medicine. Award for illuminating light. But he said he didn't need it because he had already released it all and needed his pants. Luckily there weren't any girls following along to watch it, or else he would have lost face and had no place to hide. Yes, maybe the thing illuminating light needs the most right now is a new pair of pants. Just like that, illuminating light continues to move closer to Lee JaHa. Now the male lead is very scared because he doesn't dare get close. His expression now looks very dangerous. "What the hell are you mumbling about? Surely you are very afraid of me, right?" "That's right, I'm very scared, but I'm scared of getting dirty. I don't think there will ever be a time when I can't show my strength because of something like that. Because of that dirt, I can't kick that bastard's genitals in a dangerous place." Then the male protagonist had to pay attention somewhere else. I wonder how he was planning to escape from illuminating light. Ignoring the young man who pooped in his pants, Lee JaHa ran away. But it seemed like he couldn't let the other person escape anymore. With this guy still like this, he still wants to live and die with me? No matter how much you hate me, in the current situation, you cannot enter White Eagle Town where there are many beautiful men and women. Indeed, this prediction is very accurate when illuminating light has stopped. In front there are a lot of people passing by and the male lead is standing right there. And he is in a hidden corner and does not dare to move forward. Is it good? Then you should come over here and fight me. But how can that be possible? If he comes closer, as long as pretty girls see him, he'll just run away. Surely you're scared of me. That's right, that guy who pooped his pants. After hearing that, illuminating light was bitter and couldn't do anything. This is a battle between two men to determine victory or defeat. Do you have to do it on purpose? Harm other people's reputation like that? Shut up. There's a saying in folklore that the angry person is the one with dirt on their body. And of course that saying is for you in this situation. Right as it is speculated that that bastard cannot return to White Eagle Town in this state. This is the ego, or more precisely the honor and courtesy of those who carry the name of righteousness. Thinking of this, suddenly a certain woman's voice rang out because she recognized the illuminating light. "Is that Mr. Mong Rang? What are you doing there?" The male lead also heard this and immediately turned to talk to the girl. "Are you familiar with that Mong Rang young man?" Then this woman, out of curiosity, came closer to talk to Lee JaHa. "Didn't you see anything? He's already squirted out his pants." It seems like she doesn't quite believe how that could be possible. "Don't you see that his white clothes have turned yellow and are very dirty? That means you're still standing far away, but if you get closer, you'll smell the smell of feces. You can't lie like that. How could the elegant young master Mong Rang let that happen?" Having finished speaking, the other person walked away angry because he never believed. "I'm just telling the truth, but these idiots are so crazy about him that they won't admit it." Just like that, illuminating light continues to transmit sound to everyone. Lee JaHa went into the darkness to fight again. "You bastard, this is the retribution you deserve. That's still too light compared to you breaking my junior brother's arm right now. Why don't you hurry back to your house and change your clothes? Have you heard clearly? Mong Rang, young master of the Fong Van Mong family." Just like that, Lee JaHa deliberately spoke out loud about illuminating light's shameful matter. Everyone heard. "Now go away, I'm so scared when I see you like this. Let's go back to my house, change my clothes and come back here to talk." Then there was no voice in the darkness. Me again. Just by looking at it, I can tell that the animation is of illuminating light walking away. At first glance, everyone knows that his appearance looks very rushed. "Let's take a bath, clean up, then come back here. Be careful, if anyone sees you they will lose all face. When he comes back with new clothes and his subordinates no longer have that thing, then we can go out and fight into that dangerous place to turn him into a eunuch." While wandering on the street and thinking about what to do next, the male lead also heard a few things. "Have you heard anything, beautiful lady?" She was able to control herself when she defecated in that restaurant. It was so embarrassing to know how much alcohol she had to drink until she couldn't control herself. Just like that, a lot of people wondered. Entering the restaurant, the male protagonist had just finished drinking. She's probably just like that bastard Mong Rang who can't control her body. The antidote that Mo Ying Beck made for her really worked right away. It's certainly true that traditional medicine can save people, but harming people is also simple and the effects of the antibiotic drugs are also terrible. Thinking of this, he went to a nearby restaurant to make a bowl of noodles to warm up. Belly. A moment later the hot noodle bowl was brought out by the second child. It looked so fragrant that the male lead immediately smoked it. At the opposite restaurant, many young men and women were laughing like crazy because of the way they looked. Saw the situation of So Wall and Sol Ah. Pay later the male lead also asked if there was any stream nearby. Please go straight to the end of the road, there will be a stream, the Dragon River there. That bastard probably didn't dare go back to his house to change his clothes. He must have gone to that stream to bathe and clean himself. After eating this bowl of noodles, I'll probably go there and see him a bit. The young man is becoming curious as to why Lee JaHa is looking for a stream so late at night. I am a knight on my way to hunt down a flower picker and thief. Listen, after that, he started to bow and also replied, I wish the young knight to chase down that flower picker and thief. And then Lee JaHa also made a face like he was a noble knight. After paying, he went straight there. Thinking back, after I returned, all the things I had done were to eliminate evil and help the needy, everything came from my own sincerity. Even if all the people in the world do not know about those good deeds, I can still proudly say that my current actions are like those of a true knight. If anyone knows, he has to endure it. A few moments later, he reached the stream bank that the young man had shown the way. Right below the bridge, there were a few small noises like was shaking. As expected, the illuminating light was below the stream to clean itself. Lee JaHa's mind was very scared because he thought he would turn this stream into a flooded stream, polluted by many impurities. And then he discovered that someone was watching from afar. Just by looking at him, he knew who that person was. It must have been another exciting battle. Let's see, it broke out again. The male lead had to wait for the other person to wash up and fix his clothes properly to fight. Just like that, the two found a very quiet place. Without anyone bothering me. Illuminating light looks so hideous without a piece of clothing covering his body. Actually, Lee JaHa didn't go anywhere, he just stood still and joked around. We were just passing by, quickly shower and get clean then come up here to talk. You country bastard, come down here because I've finished showering. It's true that you can't underestimate this guy, he's not an ordinary pervert. Kicking your legs in that state of clothing. When we get taller, all the things we don't want to see will be exposed to our eyes. Then Lee JaHa took a close look at illuminating light's body. Why does his body have tattoos? Too much. But it seems like the poison hasn't worn off yet, so his stomach keeps gurgling loudly. Go home, you perverted bastard, today it's like I lost. You country bastard, I will never forget your face, even if you run away to the martial arts league or the demon religion, I will still capture you alive. Lee JaHa also responded, don't think I won't hit you even if you're covered in shit. I'll specifically ask Master to make you my junior brother, but if that's the case, it's better for you to choose death. Master? I don't remember anything in my memory. I was about to ask more about tattoos to see which tattoo shops were good, but the other person immediately left. Lee JaHa's mind started mumbling to remember his past life again. Then he remembered that the famous name was Dokgu's single sword. That was the person who intended to kill the leader, a character from the demonic side. A person with martial arts skills. The owner invites him to join, although he comes from a demonic background, he has never killed anyone and has done few evil deeds. Although he does not have any power, he is called the great son of the devil, a man with great martial arts but is looked down upon because he has no support. The reason this person confronts the leader of the Demon Sect is that he wants to find out who is the real demon. Lee JaHa really can't believe that Illuminating Light's master is such a disgusting person. But at this point for him, whether it's the messenger or Dokgu's single sword, if he's not good, he'll fix it. In his heart, he's made up his mind, so just do it like that. Meanwhile, in the area of Dokgu's single sword, He is sharpening his sword after finishing practicing. This is also the person that the male protagonist is afraid to confront. Most recently, the voice of illuminating light rang out, "Master, I have returned." But looking at his disciple's sad face and his rumbling stomach, he was surprised. Thinking of asking to see what's wrong with him, he interrupted. "I can't go home like this, so please lend me some clothes temporarily." Without saying a word, Doku's single sword gestured to the closet and chose what he liked. "Which one should I wear?" After listening to illuminating light, I ran inside to look around to see if there were any nice outfits. In the end, I didn't have any white clothes, so I had to temporarily wear my master's black clothes. "Didn't you say that people your age are not opponents?" "I never said that because you thought it yourself." Hearing that, he knew that his disciple's opponent had appeared. Now, it's not surprising because this gang is so large that when Doku's single sword asked about the status of illuminating light's enemy, he straightforwardly replied that he was just a shy country guy. No, at this point, he did not ask any more questions. "Master, I cannot fully grasp his abilities, but I will confront him soon and then I will do my best. If I use ice if you attack in White Eagle Town, there will be trouble." That's what illuminating light is worried about, but if you don't use it, you won't be able to fight back. Just a country guy, but he's so strong. How can he ever be so strong? Is he the younger brother of the three talents? Doku's single sword doesn't think about it anymore but just asks not to use ice attacks in crowded places when fighting. "If you don't eat it again, just bring it here and I will personally look into it." Does that guy have "I don't deserve to die or I can take advantage of it"? Illuminating light probably can't answer because now I just want to pay for the humiliation that I've extruded into my pants. Then the unpleasant smells keep filling my nose, making Doku's single sword a bit bored. He thought his disciples were going to shit all over this place. In the end, he didn't hide anything and told Lee JaHa that he was the one who poisoned the wine. So Doku's single sword has no more stories to tell his disciples. Doku's single sword's eyes always seem to avoid making illuminating light embarrassed. Finally, he reminds his disciples to leave if they have nothing to do. Go play somewhere else. When the shadow of his disciple fell away, Doku's single sword had so many vague thoughts in his mind. The thing that took another person's life was not poison but fresh medicine, was it? Looks like he's an interesting kid. The next morning, another day passed for Lee JaHa. Currently, he's still eating and waiting in White Eagle Town. In a good mood, it seemed so great, but it suddenly disappeared when the illuminating light came from somewhere. This time when he woke up, his face was definitely not as pale as a banana leaf like yesterday. Seeing the other guy, the male lead started to frown because he was afraid of it. "It'll get pushed out here again. Eat a lot because this could be your last meal." While talking about the killing, he started to change the topic. "But I still have a question, can you answer?" Without waiting for Lee JaHa to be curious, he immediately jumped up. "If it wasn't medicine but poison, I probably would have lost my life." "What is your purpose?" Immediately after, the male protagonist replied that he couldn't tell. "Is the reason why I stole your woman? If so, then I can understand that action. You've hit the nail on the head, right? No reason why you have such a grudge against me." Lee JaHa can't argue anymore, so I'll just take it as it is for now. Then after finishing his bowl of pho, the main male character put down his chopsticks. Then spoke up. "Please take me to a secluded place to solve the problem. You've been practicing ice kung fu but it seems the wrong way, so find somewhere else to practice again." After listening, illuminating light just started to think a bit. In the end, he agreed and asked Lee JaHa to follow. A few moments later, both handsome men went to Doku's single sword in a remote forest. Hide. While walking to illuminating light, he pointed out that this is his master's house. Whether you believe it or not, that person will not interfere in the affairs of his juniors. If you are afraid, you can look elsewhere. Lee JaHa didn't pay attention to those words because he was more specifically curious about the prestige of Doku's single sword. Therefore, without hesitation, he reminded the opponent to quickly lead the way. Illuminating himself light was wondering if that countryman wasn't afraid because he was in his area. Meanwhile, Doku's single sword was still sharpening his sword as usual. His disciple had arrived, and asked if I could practice martial arts here. There was no need to concentrate, so Dokgu's single sword agreed and just glanced at Lee JaHa's place. Just looking at this person's face, I also realized that this is indeed Dokgu's single sword. Even if you kill him, it won't be your fault, so just fight with all your might. Then the male lead didn't hide anything anymore and he straightened up. Once upon a time, this guy was not my opponent, that's why I came all the way here so I could fight my senior. After listening, Dokgu's single sword began to pause because no one had dared to challenge him. Now his eyes began to look up to observe Lee JaHa's face closely. Illuminating light began, his head wrinkled and he shouted because he was clearly the real opponent. Ignoring him, the male protagonist had approached Dokgu's single sword. Where in this world is your master? I don't know about some sects. But the male lead doesn't have a master, so he can only tell the secret. You can compete with me when I recover, but right now you can't, because I'm in the process of recovering from my injury, so I won't risk fighting. If you don't want to fight Mong Rang, then just stay here and sleep. This guy's appearance doesn't bother him at all, we'll have to talk about it later. We often have confrontation, so there's no need to rush, quickly bring a cup of tea. While waiting, I'll try to guess about this uninvited young guest. Hearing those words, Illuminating Light also didn't know what to do anymore. In the end, they had to obey the master's words and go inside to make tea. Then both of them went inside to start talking. Dokgu's single sword thought for a long time and contemplated the person opposite. It seemed like he was very pleased with today's special guest. Is there any expert in this world who can guess, is it my teacher? I don't know what it was like in the past, but now I don't have a master. In your cup of tea, perhaps the disciples will put an enema or something similar to poison in it. Lee JaHa doesn't believe it. So Dokgu's single sword requests that if you don't believe it, just try it. Maybe it will be like that, but when you bring it out, the teacup will be empty. Why do you think like that? Because he eavesdropped on our conversation and secretly changed the tea. After listening, Dokgu's single sword had to nod. Illuminating Light just brought it out and confirmed that he didn't bother to put anything in it. So just drink with peace of mind. There's no enema, so you can use it freely. It seems like yesterday was quite miserable for you, right? Just like that, the three slowly enjoyed the tea prepared by Illuminating Light himself. Not sure what the male protagonist's move will be today. Everyone silently enjoyed the peaceful atmosphere at Dokgu's single sword's house. After using it, he also spoke up. No need to be reluctant to talk about issues that he did not want to reveal. However, we should also ask and answer each other's questions. If you have something you really want to know, feel free to share it. The male lead's first question is why? Why did this person accept Illuminating Light as a disciple? I want to turn it into the next heavenly devil like that, is that possible? After listening, Lee JaHa seemed very surprised with this fantasy. When it was Dokgu's single sword's turn, he began to ask why he couldn't realize that the male lead was a member of the dark path. Is not a demonic path. So your master is Tibetan, or the three masters are often called the three talents, right? People can also practice martial arts by themselves. Although it's a bit hard to believe, it seems like they really practice themselves, right? As expected, he is truly a famous master, so he has no ability to read his opponent at all. Even though he hasn't seen my martial arts with his own eyes, can he still narrow the scope? Without seeing Lee JaHa's answer, Dokgu's single sword understood that he had guessed correctly. The male lead himself did not deny this at all. In the end, what kind of martial arts did the senior teach? That idiot is proficient in using ice kung fu while his senior is familiar with using swords. Before he met me, he learned ice kung fu. Even though I'm good at using swords, there's no guarantee that this kid will also be good at using swords. Anyway, that guy needs to learn a lot. Before fighting, he was given an enema, so how much do I have to teach him? Because it would be better if each person had more in-depth training about what he's good at. To start, Dokgu's single sword continued to ask Lee JaHa's side. Which martial art are you most confident in? Your limbs seem to have very few calluses. I have learned many types of martial arts, so I don't just focus on a certain type when fighting. I am confident with all types and use them appropriately depending on the situation. It looks terrible, but for Dokgu's single sword, there's nothing special. So the male lead is feeling bitter in his heart. He continued to give the right to ask questions to him. And then now the story gets to the point. As a character of the devil, why are you doing here? Hearing that, Dokgu's single sword had to contemplate a bit. Perhaps he was also wondering why this young man knew so many things. I'm waiting to fight the master. He's not someone I can fight all the time, so I have to wait a little longer and let my body recover. You're the first time I met him, but it seems like I knew my disciple from a long time ago, so what do you want from him? If you don't poison him, then it probably isn't worth taking advantage of, right? The more I talk, the more spirit swords are surrounding Lee JaHa's place on all sides. The male lead himself is scared because maybe he shouldn't lie about just now. It's true that a Dokgu's single sword walks on the path of seeking unique swordsmanship, always wanting to be able to do the things that who hasn't been able to do it. Then he gave his disciple a lot of pain. After hearing this, Dokgu's single sword looked very surprised. To cover up this story, the male protagonist continued to speak. Why did you accept him as a disciple? Because he is a lustful person. His passion for female beauty is due to his nature, so he cannot control it, but his talent is especially rare. I have no objection to this matter because in past lives I have recognized it. Has the talent of left hand of illuminating light. Even Dokgu's single sword recognizes it. This exuberant guy is indeed a talented person. Just listening to the two people's stories, he is becoming very I'm so proud. So it's my turn to ask you why you want to get the ice attack. Lee JaHa also bluntly replied that it was to be able to defeat the leader. As time goes on, Dokgu's single sword becomes more and more it's harder to understand the person in front of you. So you want to fight with the master of martial arts, so what do you want to do? Being a martial arts master, I want to show off my strength. I have fought more than 10 battles without ever losing. So now I always want to look for real martial arts masters. The strength of those I defeated was not low, but now the only experts I know of that have strength are the leader of the sect and the master of martial arts. Only those people are worthy of my entrustment. Fight, of course it's a very simple thing. Hearing this answer, the male protagonist guessed that Dokgu's single sword is a very arrogant person. This is a sword master on the rise. The way to assert one's own strength. He always seeks to improve his strength and refuses to back down or stop. In my opinion, the person who wants to have that ice attack is not simply to be able to kill whereas the leader. Do you still have other intentions? That's not important. What's important is that I want to confront the cult leader and defeat him. This is the dream I've been dreaming of for a long time. Starting Dokgu's single sword, I have to think a bit more. That's your reason, so if that's the case then just keep asking. While thinking about something, I noticed the wooden sword right in front of me. It reminds me of the user's realm. It seems like he is in the infinite Yang sword realm. Is the person using this wooden sword showing that he is already at an absolutely high realm? My strength has not yet reached the level of a single-minded sword, but this wooden sword is the current weapon that I am very happy to use. As for the realm, that is actually true. Although the wooden sword is currently the weapon I choose to use, but I cannot fully utilize its essence. Dokgu's single sword is about learning ice magic, and certainly illuminating light will not be passed on to Lee JaHa. Of course, I will have my own way. Seniors don't need to worry about that problem. After that, Dokgu's single sword ended the question and answer because he had guessed the master's background, by Lee JaHa. After listening, the male lead was very curious to see where the other person would say he learned martial arts from. Your martial arts are a bit mixed, maybe due to being influenced by a few different people, but it seems like he without a master, it must be. As expected, he is a person with many years of experience, so whatever he says is right. He seems to be walking on the path of the great masters who founded the sect, right? In my opinion, it doesn't matter whether you have Ice Gong or not. It may be a martial art that helps in some way. If you don't have Ice Gong, you can learn about other Kai-Yin martial arts. Those Kai-Yin martial arts will help people reach their next level of cultivation in martial arts. That is what the most talented martial arts masters did, they would create martial arts. New martial arts often do something great, so people who don't have a master, so we can conclude that people learn martial arts by themselves. Dokgu's single sword asserts that in the future, if the male protagonist learns all types of martial arts, you alone will create a new type of martial arts that has never appeared before. It is true that after the regression, I have met many masters, but this time it is too different. I don't know how to rephrase his arguments. This is the first time I've fallen into this strange situation. Dokgu's single sword directly asked Lee JaHa whether his assessment was correct or not. If you have that kind of bravery and determination, I already admire you. If Mong Rang has offended, please forgive him. After all, he is still young and has not yet experienced life and does not have mature thoughts like you and me. Dokgu's single sword also promises that if the male protagonist, if you are gentle with your disciple, he will answer all your questions about martial arts for you. And this person also feels confused because both the disciple and Lee JaHa want to take the life of the Demon Sect leader or not. By the way, today we will test your strength. Hearing this, I feel quite surprised that that guy also intends to confront the cult leader or not. And what about you? The story of the past immediately rushed back to Lee JaHa's mind. In his previous life, the illuminating light left messenger did not take the heavenly pearl because he wanted to give it to the leader. The purpose he pursued was to take it over, and serves to increase one's own strength. It's true that the devil is still the same, his intentions are truly extraordinary. I also guessed wrongly about his purpose. My own heavenly pearl, I did not bring it to the leader. Thinking back, I had massacred thousands of followers before my eyes, but this Mong Rang just stood there observing as if nothing happened. Dokgu's single sword reminded his disciples not to be embarrassed about pooping their pants, to think of it as luck that they were only given an enema and not poison. If the two of you decided yesterday in a life and death battle, you might be the one to lose your life. This time, you should also reflect on yourself and let go of that passion for death. After listening to Illuminating Light, I finally promised that I would gradually quit drinking. About women, he wasn't too sure. Suddenly the animation of Dokgu's single sword disappeared and he held the sword tightly in his hand. Then he gave his disciple a lot of pain. Just like that, the whole person rolled right into the ground in front of him. His body skills are so good, he's truly worthy of being a martial arts genius. Although I feel he lamented that, but he also knew that these things happened often because Dokgu's single sword was too helpless against the drunk and girl-hungry disciple. After thinking about it, he was also grateful for the few sword strokes that opened him up. Having said that, I'm thinking a lot of nonsense in my head. It's true that a Dokgu's single sword walks on the path of seeking unique swordsmanship, always wanting to be able to do the things that who hasn't been able to do it. The devil will always be a devil, his nature cannot be changed. If I am a crazy devil, it's the same. All three should still live according to their principles. Only by our own nature can we create differences. Since the senior said that if there's anything you don't understand about martial arts, you should ask, so I'll take the liberty of asking you. The male lead mentioned what he's doing. I hold a type of martial arts with the realm of lightning swordsmanship, so I want to learn about it. Can you explain a little more about the book about lightning swordsmanship? Basically, it is possible to transform windy lightning swords into sharp sword energy. These words also made him confused. Because before this was also a question that this person had. Feels strange. Lightning sword consciousness is a realm of swordsmanship, but what realms are before and after thunder sword consciousness? The realms that book records include the long sword form, the group sword form, the 10,000 swords, then the lightning sword. Dokgu's single sword replied that it is not simply like that. Therefore, Lee JaHa added that there is also a sword technique in infinite sword skills. Hearing all the realms, Dokgu's single sword is good at swords, but he also feels very complicated. Infinity sword art is probably the most powerful sword move that humans can achieve, but we do not know of any swordsman who can reach such a level in this world. The person who wrote the book in distinguishing those swordsmanship must be a master of swordsmanship from previous generations, right? If that's the case, then I'll tell you what I know. Hearing this, the male lead's face became very satisfied. However, Dokgu's single sword only has I'm talking about my experience, so I don't expect him to apply it too much. After that, everything from the first breathing to how to hold a sword was told by this person. Not only that, but the masters of previous generations who fought well were also told. That's what I know, so you don't need to wonder anymore about lightning sword techniques. The senior wrote it down having read this book. In addition to his excellent swordsmanship, his internal skills have also reached the best level. Next, the two of them chatted a lot about all kinds of things in the world. Just like that, time passed quietly and silently. I don't understand what the male lead could think of but couldn't finish talking. When he heard him talking about the nickname Dokugu's single sword, he also treated him like that. Replied, "My prestige no longer has any meaning, so I stopped using it a long time ago." After listening, Lee JaHa also introduced himself as the master of JaHa clan. JaHa clan? Could it be that you created it yourself? Knowing that, Dokugu's single sword reminded his disciples not to touch the people of the JaHa clan or use insulting words towards them. Otherwise you will have to confront the master, especially be careful with the women. After reminding him, he will slap your thigh. I will not sleep all night because of what the master said today. And I will happily think about it, so can my disciple and master of JaHa clan give me some privacy? Understanding what his senior meant, Lee JaHa also agreed. Both of them took the initiative to leave to let Dokugu's single sword be alone. But before leaving, he reminded him a few things. Will we meet again, master of JaHa clan? In the future, my senior and I still have a lot to talk about. Receiving a very satisfactory answer, this person's expression showed go out comfortably. You've learned a lot today, so be obedient and stay home. You alcoholic should be enlightened or else you'll have to run away here again. Illuminating light made an embarrassed face and obeyed the master. The two slowly walked out of the gate of Dokugu's single sword. Then began to stare at each other like bullets. It seemed like you're lucky, you country boy, to even be taught by my master. Lee JaHa doesn't want to argue, I just think this illuminating light guy is so lucky. Now maybe that's his nickname. It's just shit. As I was about to continue arguing, the master had to call inside to assign some work. Immediately had to rush in to take orders. So today is the end peaceful with Lee JaHa. A little regretful that he hasn't become a pure illuminating light yet. Maybe he has to wait for a suitable opportunity to cut off his tea set, even though he can't learn attack immediately, but it seems like I already have a good sword. But since I didn't use a sword according to the standards of Dokugu's single sword in my previous life, I really don't have any special martial arts. If I had to choose the most confident martial art, it would be the anonymous stick that Crazy Monk gave me. But this is just the advantage gained from a stiff stick. Thinking about this, Lee JaHa feels very uncomfortable in his heart. He knows that Dokugu's single sword's level is much higher than his, so he is not satisfied. Even so, he still comforts himself. Since the regression until now, the speed of martial arts development has been very fast, so there is no need to worry. We don't need to rush to compare ourselves with others because we and Dokugu's single sword are not on the same path. A street. It was already very late, so Lee JaHa had to find a temporary restaurant to have a few glasses of wine. As expected, his level of destruction was no less than that of illuminating light. Speaking of, I don't know where he came from, but he found it in just a blink of an eye. Without even saying hello, he took the male lead's newly poured cup of wine. Then he drank it all in one gulp without thinking. So he immediately reminded him that he was not afraid of the enema but still dared to drink such random things. After hearing that, illuminating light had to hastily gouge out his throat to ensure his own safety. It looked like I seemed like a cunning person, after all, he's still very young and green. Then he let go of his anger about pooping his pants. Why do people know that I use ice attack? The male lead only answered lightly because he wanted to learn that secret. It reminds me of the user's realm. It seems like he is in the infinite Yang sword realm. I have many subordinates. My subordinates become the successor of the merchant company and tell me the anecdote of Jade Flower Palace. Especially the families in the gathering areas of Bok Dao. I am looking for a successor for the prosperity of Jade Flower Palace. So that's why that guy with the broken arm followed me, right? But at that time, I didn't use ice attack and I wasn't the object you were looking for. Talking about his map making, the male lead seemed very dangerous. That's ridiculous, man. Broke my subordinate's arm and coincidentally happened to be in White Eagle Town. And then I found out that you were a flower girl but had outstanding martial arts skills, and even my subordinates were beaten. You should show your face, but ice attacks are only discovered when fighting with people. Why are your subordinates following me? Because he thought that you must be an illegitimate child of the family, so you learned ice kung fu. After hearing that, illuminating light angrily replied, Do you know that everyone in White Eagle Town was defeated at the hands of an abandoned child like me? But Lee JaHa doesn't care about anything, it has to happen. A lost child is still an abandoned child, so why do you have to be angry with that guy? Seeing the other person's angry expression, he calmly preached morality. All of those things are not something you can choose. Having said that, he also just say you're stupid because you don't have intelligence. Illuminating Light himself didn't dare to deny what Lee JaHa had just said. He then asked the second child to bring him another cup of wine, to sit and drink together. He also asked why he wanted to kill the leader of the Demon Sect. How could a lame chicken like you have anything to do with him? This is quite important, so the male lead doesn't want to talk about it. Knowing that it's like that, the other person can't ask more. Suddenly a woman in a flowing dress passes by, causing Illuminating Light must pay attention. Not only that, but the eyes lingered for a long time until the other person disappeared. Why did you turn into a dog in heat like that? Both of them started discussing nonsense again. Knowing that Lee JaHa wanted to learn a little about girls but Illuminating Light didn't bother to share his experience. So the guys laughed heartily. Happened late at night. And suddenly the male protagonist did something like he was attacking the other person. Illuminating Light, who was sipping wine late, quickly turned his eyes to pay attention. Immediately that means he had gathered internal energy in his body and threw a palm at his face. He was naturally good at martial arts, so he did not hesitate to resist. Explosions rang out, causing a commotion, stirring up all the surrounding shops. I wonder what else the male protagonist is trying to plot. If he doesn't use the enema card this time, I don't know what card he will use on Illuminating Light. Just like that, everyone in the bar ran out to see who would be the winner of these two experts. It seemed like the male lead wanted to draw a clear line between the opponent and Illuminating himself. Light also wants to show off his strength in front of the master of JaHa clan. It seems that Senior Doku's single sword doesn't want us to fight, but maybe we still have to divide the high and low, right? That's right, we have to defeat I Got You, that country name. More and more, people from all around have flocked to watch the two sides collide. When the girls saw Illuminating Light, they began to widen their eyes in admiration. The guy who spits out your pants seems to be quite famous, doesn't he? You will soon be famous for your disgrace today. After listening, Lee JaHa started to increase a few points. His power to gain the upper hand. As expected, his power is almost overwhelming the opponent. Illuminating Light realized this, so he became very confused. He said that if he fought again, it wouldn't be good, so he had to save it. Like the male lead, how could he accept that? As time went on, his internal strength completely overwhelmed the other person. A burst of smoke and dust flew everywhere, causing everyone watching to lose their vision. Illuminating Light's body was unconsciously knocked away. And from there, countless eyes turned towards him. Maybe the male protagonist had to take advantage of the opportunity in White Eagle Town to humiliate him. Illuminating Light was not satisfied, so he planned to stand up to fight another round. But he quickly looked around to assess the situation. A lot of women were whispering incomprehensibly. This guy is really good no matter what the situation is, there are still a lot of them. The woman followed him. Suddenly Illuminating Light laughed loudly like a crazy person. He brushed the dust from his clothes all around him and walked towards Lee JaHa's place. Then he took the initiative. Voice with a very welcoming attitude. Today it seems like I have lost, do you want to lose or lose? If you lose one, what are you left with, the guy who made those pants? Even though it's a loss, we still have to compete with each other in the future, so don't be too harsh. After pouring a glass of wine, Illuminating Light affirmed that he couldn't compete with the male lead's inner strength. As I said that, I also looked over at the women to see what their attitude was towards themselves. But it was definitely less stressful, so I could drink wine with peace of mind. Kandu One took a sip and started telling a story. In the past, there was a male servant named Byung-jo, who was my servant. He is 5 years older than me and often calls me dude, often prepares food for me and even changes my shoes. He was a very loyal servant who always brought me clothes and towels every time I bathed. When I was little, Byung-jo was the only one who played with me. But then one day that loyal servant naturally hanged himself in the small room. When we found out why the only servant died, we discovered that this idiot was secretly in love with a woman named Dan Young. I found that woman named Dan Young and questioned her, but do you know what she said? She rejected his confession and even said that Byung-jo is not Mong Rang, so what right does she have to fall in love? To think that such a fool is my servant, it just sounds like, is that enough to commit suicide? The story is quite interesting, so the male lead is gradually curious. I really want to learn about women, to see how they think that makes my Byung-jo have to take his own life. But the surprising thing is that most of the women have the same thoughts as that Dan Young. They must be more handsome, rich and have a family to be suitable. They write from the start. At first, I didn't consider Byung-jo a human being. It's more like they don't consider him a man. The more we interact, the more goosebumps I get. Sometimes there are even standard women. Seniors don't like me just because I'm the second child. In the eyes of those people, I'm no different from Byung-jo. That's why you change from one woman to another, right? Illuminating Light dismissed this statement because he only wanted to avenge his servant. After hearing this, Lee JaHa pointed out that the other person was as sick as his biological father. Seeing Illuminating Light's angry expression, he softly explained, "Your father had an affair with your mother just to get ice and he didn't even love her. Ice, the merit is that the family's soul is very carefully protected, so your mother only passed it on to you. So you must have been treated like an illegitimate child in the Mong family, right? But for being a sinful servant, why do you do these things?" As expected, it's no different than father being a bastard. While drinking good wine, Lee JaHa suddenly started making random drawings, making Illuminating Light angry, clenching his fists to rush in. But before he could do anything, he was immediately slapped with a blow that made his eyes explode. I don't understand why Lee JaHa brings this up as an excuse. He started grabbing his neck and then continued to tell everything. Maybe Dokgu's single sword senior felt sorry for him, so he collected "just pay your respects. Go away and play somewhere else. If you dare attack, I'll turn you into a eunuch. I haven't dated anyone yet, so you better not say anything." That's nonsense to me. After hearing that, Illuminating Light's eyes widened in surprise. This bastard is truly a pitiful bastard. Knowing that it was a slip of the tongue, the male lead had to kick him to begin with. Moved on to something else to cover up. But with Illuminating Light's long-time flirting with girls, how could he not notice? Just like that, loud laughter rang out and Lee JaHa didn't pay any attention. He just took a few sips of wine and confided that he also wanted to find true love. They both laughed loudly like two innocent children. Even though we were a bit miserable, maybe this time it will be a lot different. While thinking, he also looked straight at the direction of Illuminating Light with so many hidden meanings. Meanwhile, he still showed his grin when he heard about Lee JaHa's death. The belt was still intact. So he had to make a terrible face to stop talking about this matter. Next, Illuminating Light was still laughing but couldn't hold it back. Maybe this is the secret that the male protagonist wanted to hide from his past life until now. Suddenly he stood up and asked the second child to pay. "Where do you want to go? Is it to find true love? Real, right?" But Lee JaHa doesn't want to say anything because this is too delicate for him. "Just stay in White Eagle Town because there are more beauties here than other places. Compared to those guys, if that famous male palace is playing around, there are many beautiful beauties here." The second young man nearby also got a glimpse of it, so he wished the male lead would always find the person in his heart. After listening, but Illuminating Light burst out laughing, causing Lee JaHa to frown. He frowned and then left without forgetting to say a few words. "If there's anything you want to ask Senior, I'll go there and find it." Illuminating Light wanted to ask where to go to meet the male lead, but he replied that he should go to the Black Cat Union. "Wait a minute, I thought you were the leader of JaHa clan, but I was fight and kill and recruit all the dark men who dare to stand in my way. Of course, that's why I'm also the leader of that sect. No need to ask any more. Does Illuminating Light say goodbye? I forgot to wish you always find the true love of your life." In Lee JaHa's heart, how can a ghost understand the path of a lonely man? Thinking of this, I remember the number one beauty of the Central Plains or the number one beauty of the White Path. People call those beauties by the names of the places where they live. Thinking back, I once lusted after half of them, but now I don't have that desire anymore. Of course I just don't express my feelings. Just like that I wandered in the night until dawn. In the end, also safely returned to his area. Still doing the same thing as usual, sitting right under the corner of tomorrow to practice. A few moments later, old Byuk came over to announce a urgent matter. He said that a man claiming to be the head of the Nanming Association came to meet him. I took him outside the hospital to wait. There were quite a few subordinates waiting outside but only for him. Went inside. Sure enough, Nam Garrick admired his martial arts skills, so he followed through on his promise. Knowing that, Lee JaHa also took the initiative to come over to meet him. Before he could even step inside, once inside, he also said hello. Did you come here to meet me as agreed? After being safe, Nam Garrick continued to inquire. Your subordinates really trained hard. Those are all ordinary people who need to practice if they want to survive, right? The reason why the master of the Nanming Association came to see him this time was because the Southern Heavenly Truple and the Supreme Sword Association had just had a fight not long ago. The guild masters of both sides appeared and the Great War began. Broke out, both sides suffered heavy losses but still inconclusive. This story is very important, so Lee JaHa remained silent to hear more about what happened next. The Southern Heavenly Truple's leader almost broke out. Crazy, he contacted all the black magicians within his sphere of influence and asked them to come to the area. If they dared to refuse, they threatened to destroy them unconditionally when the war with the Supreme Sword Association ends. It seems like they have already found your place, right? Nam Garrick did not deny it. Then one day the Supreme Sword Association also contacted this servant with the same content. In other words, all nearby black magicians were forced to choose one of the other two alliances. Having said that, Nam Garrick refused both. I only know that both of them are black people. If that's the case, then which side is more miserable? Supreme Sword Association is a large gang that specializes in coercion and merger of merchant corporations, so they have a lot of money and tyrannical merchants are reluctant to join. As for the Southern Heavenly Truple, yes, as for the name of the underworld, the guild master of that place merged everything into one gang. He is the most famous person and also the one who blocked the Supreme Sword Association's money source from passing through. Hearing this story, Lee JaHa is guessing that the Southern Heavenly Truple side is a bit better. Doheng Saw is the king of the Southern Heaven Land. If he introduces himself as the leader of the JaHa clan, they will force him to kneel before him. The male main character heard this and asserted that he was the king of one side, so there could not be two leaders. Nam Garrick affirmed that the leader of the JaHa clan himself was no different from Doheng Saw. However, in his mind, he also thought that not everyone could kneel at Lee JaHa's feet. Seeing these expressions, the male lead seemed very confused. Outside, the owner of the Golden Dragon opened the door and walked in to announce the news. This news is also quite important because the Supreme Sword Association has come to see. As expected, they also want to merge the Black Cat Union under their control. That also made the head of the Nanming Association very surprised. To learn more about the incident, the male lead also allowed them to enter the audience. What a laugh! Why did you even come all the way here? Later, the subordinate also sent the representative into the study room to meet. The attitude of this news seems very arrogant and disrespectful of anyone. In that case, he still looked everywhere without even greeting the gang leader. I'm not sure what the male lead will do to him in the end, or will he send him back to the production site safely. People of the Supreme Sword Association continued to roll his eyes in Nam Garrick's direction. Of course, he also showed an indifferent attitude. Who is the leader of the Black Cat Union? Please speak up. Hearing this question, the male lead also admitted that it was him. If that's the case, then let your subordinates go out. As expected, it's exactly as the Nanming Association's leader told them. Don't care about anyone. There's no need to do that because this isn't my subordinate, so tell me quickly. If that's the case, let me introduce myself first. But Lee JaHa didn't let him do that, he just asked to tell the main thing. The leader of the Black Cat Union really doesn't care about anyone. I'm from the Supreme Sword Association. So what's the matter? I forgot something, please tell me quickly. Each Black Cat Union fighter gets 3 pieces of silver as a day's salary. If the guild master comes directly, he will receive 10 pieces of silver per day. Even if you not doing anything is still considered participating in the war and will be fully settled. Especially if the great Rakshasa comes directly, he will receive 50 pieces of gold per day. If he refuses, instead of receiving money, he will have to bear the burden. The guild master's anger. Nam Garrick heard this and added fuel to the fire with Lee JaHa. It seems my subordinates are still more valuable than the Black Cat Union. Unexpectedly, I'm being looked down upon by that group of people here. It's so embarrassing and embarrassing like this, what should I do? Finally, the male lead had to sigh and tell that guy. Understand. It seems like you don't know that the great Rakshasa is dead, right? After listening, he was very surprised because no one had told him anything. Even if he didn't know about such a big story, he wanted to come here to report it. Nam Garrick spoke up. To be honest, both groups are equally miserable, so I will not take sides. They should fight each other once to resolve this matter, so the subordinates on both sides will not have to lose their lives, because I don't understand why this war has to involve so many forces. The male guild master is right, since he is a man, he should do this. Is this the right answer? I heard everything clearly. After saying that idiot turned around and walked away without even saying goodbye. After the battle ends, we'll meet again later. But maybe it was him will never be able to return to his area again. The male lead called So Gun Pyong in to assign work. He immediately threw open the door and startled the other guy. He was the messenger of the Supreme Sword Association, said that they will confront us soon. We will compete in the inner courtyard, so quickly gather your subordinates to watch. I have to test the Supreme Sword Association's ability. Seeing that guy panicking, he slowly explained. The Southern Guild Master also told his subordinates to go inside so I can check the male guild leader as well. Now I don't like the Southern Heavenly Truple or the Supreme Sword Association at all. They are evil people. And of course we will have to see what the upcoming opponent's abilities are. That arrogant messenger quickly prepared to go to the martial arts arena. Can you bear the consequences after this happens? Maybe this guy didn't know what Lee JaHa's crazy personality was like. After hearing that nonsense, he jumped straight in front of him and turned it off a few times. His whole body he fell to the ground, and the male lead also reminded him. I'm not in a good mood lately. Are they just the gangsters from the suburbs who dared to come here to ruin the mood? Don't you hurry up and prepare for the martial arts match if you don't want to be slapped to death. So Gun Pyong silently observed that idiot for a while. Then he said that this person is not old enough to fight with me. He's too bad, right? If that's the case, then call Cha Sung-ti here. A moment later, the male lead's younger brother showed up to prepare to beat Supreme's people. Sword Association battle. His mood now is completely different from many months ago because he has practiced martial arts. Are you planning on treating the envoy like this? I only came here to convey what they said. If that's the case, then we have to compete with the Supreme Sword Association to make it make sense. It's not enough to explain further. Could eat something, so the messenger took a defensive stance to request a fight. Cha Sung-ti's attitude at this time was very cautious. Don't do anything to hurt yourself. Love you. Shut up you bastard, there's no way you can fight without getting hurt. As expected, these words are no different from what Lee JaHa usually says. Cha Sung-ti know only in terms of personality, but the way of speaking is not much different from the boss. Nam Garrick asked about his cultivation level and found out that he is currently at the bottom of society and is moving up. Hearing that story, Lee JaHa's younger brother grimaced. Then he immediately rushed straight to proactively attack the opponent first. The other person still maintained the defensive posture and waited for openings. The sound of swords colliding with each other is deafening. It seems like Cha Sung-ti is the one who is very dominant because he constantly pushes the opponent back. Not only that, but the speed seems to be being pushed up very quickly. The head of the Nanming Association feels quite satisfied when seeing that performance. As each day goes by, Cha Sung-ti hits harder and doesn't let the opponent rest. As for the other messenger, he was constantly passively resisting. The sword was sharp, diving forward very quickly. Perhaps the outcome of victory or defeat is gradually being clearly determined. Not only did they fight with external techniques, but these two also tried their hand at internal techniques. With a boom, Cha Sung-ti's body was suddenly knocked back. During this time, his body was also unconscious. I was able to control myself, so I lost my balance. And the opponent was also affected no less. A bloody shot shot out from nowhere. Cha Sung-T's animation continued, rushed straight into attack. Looks like his face was out of breath because of too much fighting. But the result was extremely satisfying because he was able to suppress the other guy. Now he's also fighting. Not sure if he should kill it or keep it, so he asked Lee JaHa for his opinion. But he wanted to keep it alive so he could run back and tell those people what the Black Cat Union is like. Supreme Sword Association then, so there's nothing special, right? Don't misunderstand that guy for nothing, because this is the martial arts match that I arrange. I know it's like that, but Cha Sung-T is feeling I feel very happy because I was able to show it off in front of everyone in the guild. Everyone has seen it all, right? The power of the fake country is only that much. Supreme Sword Association watch reward Black Cat Union is like the Meteor Wanderers, so now we refuse the offer. Now just let him go first. If next time he dares to be arrogant like that, things won't stop with 2 slaps. I heard that. The messenger hastily ran down and knelt down to thank him for being spared. After that, he didn't say any greetings but covered his face and walked back to the area. Is his ear bleeding? My power is very strong, isn't it? Looking at this scene, everyone who sees it has to be speechless. A moment later, the male lead temporarily held a small meeting. Cha Sung-T was still talking about it. What happened during the match? His ear was bleeding, maybe it was because my palm force was so strong. Before the match, he was slapped twice by the owner and his eardrum was probably punctured. After listening, the boy sighed as if he thought it was his palm. Supreme Sword Association and Southern Heavenly Truple fight. If we join, each of us will receive 3 pieces of silver. After listening, everyone feels very uncomfortable about this. The male lead also directly said that this is the price he will pay for the lives of the participants. But everyone understands that it is so cheap that it is not enough to buy it. Have a drinking party. That's why the owners of Golden Dragon also spoke up. Do they take money from threatening business corporations to do this? What a bunch of trash. We are also trash, please take back what you said. But we are not the same as them. We are trash like fallen leaves from the apricot tree. And they are just trash like the pile of feces extruded right after taking an enema. Countless subordinates are thinking that they can't be compared to anything else, so what? Lee JaHa also had to retract his words. Cha Sung-T also twisted a few sentences. It was truly a seductive spell that went into people's hearts. Master. Shut up, don't think I'm gentle. But overdoing it. Ignoring this nonsense, the male lead also introduced Nam Garrick as the head of the Nanming Association and also refused the offer of the other 2 forces. No matter how capable you are, if you as a man, you have to have the same opinion as the Southern Guild leader. Even if we have to fight with them this time, the Nanming Association and the Black Cat Union will join forces. So I want to let you know about this matter. Even if we join forces, it will be difficult to defeat them, but I guarantee that Nanming will not be humiliated. After hearing this, both sides had to bow down to try together. Try your best in the upcoming battle. As for the master, he asserted that if he joined forces and he was the leader, even the children of heaven would be turned into dust. After listening, Nam Garrick understood that the leader of the Black Cat Union himself would go to battle. Even though he said that, he didn't really want to because he was afraid his subordinates would die in a useless battle. This was all. The guild master of Nanming also thought about it. Then Huyan Chung, the real name of the silver demon Yu Sa Chung, spoke up and promised that he could mobilize some troops. Master Huyan Chung worked hard. He taught Father Sung-T General Butler, right? Thanks to that, I didn't have to lose face with my subordinates just now. Huyan Chung heard this word and it seemed like the gang leader had changed his address. Did you shout to me? Lee JaHa did not need that help, but he asked this person to have time to train all the disciples in the Black Cat Union gang. After listening, he formed that is, respectfully bow and not dare to refuse. As expected, Lee JaHa is gaining more and more talented subordinates. Cha Sung-T himself is a bad guy, which is a typical example. But he always affirms that he is a very diligent student. The current enemy is the Supreme Sword Association. In front of us we don't need to care about the Southern Heavenly Truple anymore. Sogun Pyong is curious about that reason you also explained carefully. I heard that the Southern Heavenly Truple originally came from pure black magic. If the leader makes a decision, there is a high chance they will accept it. Let alone those with a lot of money like the Supreme Sword Association will not hesitate to spend money to hire assassins to assassinate. Speaking of this, you also know that Nam Garrick has been assassinated several times. According to the fake news, the people who hired assassins in his previous life, he was a member of the Supreme Sword Association. First of all, just ignore the Southern Heavenly Truple and immediately send a letter to them. Byuk, I have accepted this job, but I want the master to say the content as follows. How can I find out how to send it? Basically, in the letter the male protagonist requested, it said, the 12 Divine Generals, the Golden Mountain Merchant Group, Il-Yong Town, Black Thien Bao, all belong to JaHa clan. Not only that, but all the merchants, soldiers, martyrs, and farmers all belong to the JaHa clan. If the Supreme Sword Association dares to threaten to kidnap, assault, or kill these people, it would be declaring war on JaHa clan. Nam Garrick spoke up about his association, so he immediately reminded him to include the Nanming Association as well. The entire sect master and subordinates will arrange and send the letter. Don't stop there. Lee JaHa requested that the letter be sent verbatim to both the main and mixed sects. All surrounding areas must see it. Write hundreds of letters and post them on the doors to send to the scattered sects. Come to every house in every corner of this world for me. From now on, if they dare to touch the workers, I will be the one to directly slap them in the face or kill them immediately. Everyone agreed and no one dared to speak out in protest. Tell those who are dissatisfied and want to confront me that those people are ridiculous. If you want, just go to Lee JaHa of JaHa clan. If you do, if so, you will be very busy. First, I will send it to the Supreme Sword Association. After all, I also asked old Byuk to include the fact that he killed the great Rakshasa in the letter to give him blood. It seems like everyone around doesn't know that I killed the great Rakshasa. Then write that I killed Mr. Su, the elder hornless Dragon King, and also the master of the Black Panther. In addition, the cheating bettors, especially Dong Fong Yian, have also been roasted by me. This is too much news that the general butler needs to do. After finishing this, he also spoke up. Called Cha Sung-ti to assign the job. When he heard his name called, he was very excited because he finally received a clear mission. Now go back to Il-Yong Town and use a horse-drawn carriage to take some people. Come here for me. On the way back, buy food and good wine. Choose 10 brothers here to go with you for peace of mind. The JaHa clan master must wait for the Nanming brothers to treat association to have a hearty meal. Having finished speaking, he also reminded the general butler to give Cha Sung-ti more money to buy lots of delicious food. Although busy, if you come here, let's stay together, let's have a meal. Hearing this, Nam Garrick no longer had any words to refuse. After talking about eating and drinking, the male protagonist asked again if he had forgotten to fill in the list of enemies he had killed. No. But everyone didn't want to write anything else, so they didn't say anything. Suddenly there was a very loud noise outside that made everyone pay attention. The banging sounds, the door banged and the sound of intervention continued to ring out. It was immediately kicked open in the surprise of the people inside. I didn't understand who they were, but their attitude seemed very grotesque. The leader with a hairy mouth shouted loudly to introduce himself as being from the Southern Heavenly Truple and wanting to find the leader of the Black Cat Union. Everyone who heard this turned to look at the male lead. Thank you. He looked very scared, but he was just scared for that crazy guy's life. Surely he would suffer Lee JaHa's wrath. But suddenly he still didn't have it. There was no response. Just like that, all 3 impolite guys rushed straight into the middle of the inner hall.